Welcome to the EMEA Recruitment Podcast in partnership with our good friends at Operation Smile. Operation Smile delivers life-changing surgery to children and adults with cleft lip and palate around the world. You can find out more about our partnership and the work they do at emearecruitment.com/operation-smile. In this episode, we speak to Aashim Malhotra, the Vice President and Managing Director, Asia Pacific Region at Dole, who explains his passion for leading a small team with big ambitions.
Hi everybody, thank you for listening to the EMEA Recruitment Podcast. It's Paul Toms here, and I thought I'd just give you some exciting news of what we're doing here at EMEA to further our relationship with the great guys over at Operation Smile. So during the month of October, we are taking part in something called a Miles for Smiles challenge. And this challenge that we're setting ourselves is going to be traveling the distance of our offices in the UK, the Netherlands and Switzerland through a variety of activities and events to help raise awareness and money for the guys at Operation Smile, who are obviously the official partner of the EMEA Recruitment Podcast. So with this in mind, to help us raise new smiles for children born with cleft lip and palate, please help us to donate and raise some money and awareness for this great cause. You'll see a link on the podcast promotion, and I'll be delighted even if you're able to donate a very small amount to this cause, and hopefully between us and the great network we have, we can help these children in the developing countries have better lives. Thank you so much for your help and enjoy the podcast. Bye-bye. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the next episode of the EMEA Recruitment Podcast in partnership with our good friends over at Operation Smile. So we're delighted to welcome Aashim to the podcast today, as Rose mentioned. So hopefully you can hear me okay today, Aashim?
Yes, I can, Paul. Thank you very much.
Perfect. Well, I know it's almost impossible to start these conversations without bringing up the situation of COVID and how it's affected people's lives really over this period of time. So I thought before we go into all of the questions that we got lined up, I thought to start off with it'd be just interesting to hear from your point of view what you've maybe learned about yourself over this last 18 months of the COVID challenges, really.
Yeah, that's a very important question and a topic, Paul. I think, as you know, in Asia especially, most countries continue to reel under the COVID situation with more and more new cases every day. I think if there's one thing I'm learning, and probably a lot of my friends, colleagues, families, we are all learning, is that human beings were created to be resilient. And I think we were born to withstand disruptions in our lives, ups and downs in our lives. And I think that's what's keeping everyone afloat. So I think the single biggest learning I personally had is how to be physically, mentally, emotionally resilient and keep at it every day, because that's the only way that we together, mankind, humanity, all of us, friends, brothers, friends, kith and kin, I think that's the only way we'll be able to get through this. And we just need to remind ourselves this too shall pass. And I think we're all learning that there are many, many ways to control governments, countries, experimenting and figuring out new ways to withstand the onslaught. And I do believe that this too shall pass. And hopefully we'll come out as a society, as mankind, stronger, wiser, and better prepared for the future. But I think the other big learning that it's brought to the fore is we need to take care of nature. Nature sustains us, and therefore we just can't have empty rhetoric around the ESGs, and what we do to climate and what we do to our environment. If it's to be, it's up to each one of us. And I think there was never a stronger time to really realize this, internalize this, introspect and take action upon this.
I mean, I think it's a really interesting answer to the question there. And I think, obviously one of the things you mentioned there was the resilience both physically and mentally. And I think obviously it's one of those things that I think a lot of people have come to realize over this period, that they could be looking after themselves a lot better. And I think the more time to reflect on who they are, what they do, who they want to be seen as. And I think one of the challenges a lot of people have had though is, I guess it's one thing realizing that you want to be physically and mentally resilient, but another thing actually putting it into practice. And I just wondered, again, really, if there's any hints or advice you can give to people in how you've done that yourself, really.
Yeah, look, everybody has a different coping mechanism. I can definitely speak for myself. So one of the things that has really, I think, kept me in good shape, and I'm grateful for that, is my habit of meditation. So mindfulness, which you just touched upon, right? Being emotionally, mentally very focused. Therefore, any kind of meditation that helps being mindful, I think really helps. It has helped me a lot. So having a daily routine, spending an hour, 2 hours, in meditation, whether it's early mornings or late evenings, that has helped a lot. The second big thing is making sure that you're able to take out time, an hour or 2 hours, for some physical activity. So in my case, I just go for a jog, sometimes just a walk, and I typically do on an average 6.5 kilometers every day. And on weekends, when I'm a little more relaxed, I even go up to 10K. That has become a very critical part of my daily routine. And it really, really keeps, the oxygen flowing. It keeps the mind stable. And these two things help me a lot. The third thing that I've started practicing is also eating a bit more mindfully. I'm a foodie. I love food, and I love sweet. But I just started appreciating that there was probably a more mindful way to eat and still enjoy. And I think that has also helped me a lot because, as we're all working from home and we're all sitting on chairs for 15, 16, God knows how many hours, it becomes super, super critical that we take care of our health. So those are some things that have helped me. And I do make it a point, Paul, since you asked, on weekends, more and more in the last, I think, 12, 18 months, making sure that we switch off our computers, we get away from work, you completely disconnect, and really give time to your friends and your family. I think that's very important. It just releases you, it gives you the much needed bonding time that you need with your family, your kids, socializing, meeting with people. Just even if you can't go out, at least hanging out together at home, even if it's just spending an hour over coffee on a Saturday night, it's been doing wonders for me.
No, I mean, it's great to hear. And I think that there's something that runs through some of the points you've made there that's consistent with the way you approach life and the way you've approached this whole situation. And I guess it's having that routine, that structure to allow you to be able to think about these things in the first place, so to become a better person, but also then being able to put these things into practice. And I know we spoke offline earlier this week about the great culture that Dole Packaged Foods has. So I thought that it could lead quite nicely on to just talking a bit about some of the initiatives that Dole have put into place to help to enable you and your teams to do these types of things.
Yeah, thank you for asking that. So actually, starting with one of the first things we've done as an organization is we've created what we called email etiquette, because we realized we were almost becoming an always-on culture, and there were emails flowing in the middle of the night, emails flowing on a Saturday morning, and every time an email came, if I got distracted and disturbed, I'm sure my colleagues, my team members, my associates were going through the same. So I think the leadership team earlier on took a decision as late as last year, I think last quarter of last year, that we'll set in place an email etiquette. So we actually disallow, I won't say discourage, we disallow emails on weekends, and we disallow people sending WhatsApp messages, work related, unless it is super critical. And we've defined what super critical means, and we've defined what level it should go, because we don't want everyone suddenly getting hassled on a weekend. The second thing we've done is we started this practice in Asia a few months back, where on Fridays, there are no meetings, no emails, no calls after 3 p.m. So basically, we started doing that. We started to learn how employees, our colleagues, team members react. We found it was very favorable. So it's now become an organization-wide global policy, no meetings after 3 p.m. The basic idea was to just allow everyone some downtime. Let people, we encourage all of us, including me, clear all emails, before you wind up on a Friday. Take the remaining 2 hours, 3 hours, finish whatever else was due for this week, so that you go into the weekend mentally relaxed, and next week is going to be another week. So that's another big practice. I think it has helped a lot. I've been personally getting a lot of feedback from my members, team members, colleagues saying they really appreciate that. And I think what it's doing is people are coming back on a Monday quite fresh because you've given them headspace to relax, to think through, to focus, prioritize. And the last thing we're just getting started is we're actually just rolling out a mindfulness practice, starting with the leadership teams and their next levels in Asia, where we are going to be going through weekly mindfulness coaching so that we can all actually practice that mindfulness. And it's going to be a four-week long program, which is being facilitated by an external company. And the intention is based on what we learn, we like to roll that out to the next level and the next level so that pretty much all the team members go through it and start practicing it. So those are some of the things we've done. And I forgot to mention, we have also all downloading some apps, and we're going to start already started in some pockets, team competition on who does the maximum number of steps or maximum number of miles. It's just our way of keeping each other honest and looking after each other and putting a little bit of peer pressure on each other to look after ourselves.
I mean, it's great to hear, because I know a huge challenge that every organization that has faced is how to come out of this whole situation and how to deal with flexible working, with helping their teams with, as you say, mindfulness, with focus, time management, and all these types of things. And I think the initiatives that the business is putting together, really forward thinking. I mean, I think it's something that's obviously. We'll talk about recruitment a bit later on, but these types of things, they obviously make it an appealing business to work for, but most importantly, an appealing business to stay at and to build a career with, which I think is beneficial for you, your teams, and the business as a whole. And I thought the links to that, because it sounds like obviously you're in a very good place yourself, mentally, physically, working at a great business that looks after its people. I thought I'd just ask you what it feels like to be the VP and MD of in the APAC region for such a great business, really.
Yeah, thank you for that question. I have to admit, after working for some very large organizations in different parts of the world, moving to a more mid-sized organization and in a role that's quite, it spans a large geography, I must say my first feeling is one of privilege. I think I feel very privileged with the opportunity that's been given to me to lead, and I would say serve my teams as well as our consumers in what we are convinced is one of the most diverse and dynamic regions of the world. I am part of a small team, but with very big ambitions. A team that is committed to our purpose to make the world a more equitable place, where we are daring ourselves to challenge ourselves and our status quo. So really, this is an opportunity where we are allowed to be entrepreneurial. We look at every day as day one. We are empowering ourselves more and more, and we are encouraging ourselves to work without boundaries. And it's an honor, honestly. I think it's one of the fantastic opportunities that has come my way to really support cross-country, cross-functional teams to deliver our best every day. And this is what's really driving my passion. It's keeping my energies very high, and it's allowing me to turn up being myself every day. The challenges are huge, but then that's what I personally wanted. Whether it's geographic expansion into new countries, as we are opening up a lot of countries for the first time, like India, China, Vietnam, or it is taking existing businesses in established countries like Japan, Korea, Australia, Philippines. And it's how do you take each market, how do you really build it, and how do we have fun along the way? So therefore, it's about the opportunity to bring in great talent and build world-class teams, the opportunity to understand and learn from the different cultures. One of the big learnings I'm getting in life is gone are the days of old style management. We now work with Gen Zs and the millennials. And they don't necessarily think the way earlier generations or even generations were trained to think. So it's calling for a lot of agility, for a lot of being what they call open-minded, and accepting that there's so much more to learn I very often both feel humbled, and at the same time, I feel really good that I learn something from one of my junior colleagues every week, and I walk away saying, wow, imagine what the younger team knows that we never learned. So all in all, it's a super experience. It's coming with a lot of responsibility. It's humbling, that you're in this position. And it's even more humbling that with where we are versus where we aim to go. And it's, as I said, humbling, and yet fills me with pride that we are really bringing together amazing bunch of people. And by the way, a very diverse team with a lot of great female team members and leaders who've joined us in the last 6-8 months. And I think together we are all fueled by passion. We are fueled by purpose. And we truly want to do our part so that we can contribute to making the world a better place. And, if you approach the business literally from that lens, it's the why of why we are all here. You feel super energized. So that's really what I really feel and think all about my role currently, looking after the P&L and the business in the Asia Pacific region.
Hi everybody, it's Paul Thomas here. I hope that you're well and you're enjoying the podcast so far. Thank you once again for your continued support listening to the podcast. I just wanted to break into the recording to talk to you about a really exciting new partnership that EMEA Recruitment has along with Operation Smile. And as founder of EMEA Recruitment, it's an honour and a privilege to announce this partnership. Personally, I was born with a cleft lip and palate, so the mission of Operation Smile is something that I have a strong personal connection with. It's not an understatement to say that the dentists and surgeons that helped me were life changers. It's not only about the actual operations that take place, the support and care post and pre-operation are beyond value, and from personal experience I can only say that I'd not be the confident, happy person I am today without this support. I want to help children experience the support and care and skill that I experienced on my journey, and hope that we can do this along with Operation Smile. Every 3 minutes, a child is born with a cleft lip or cleft palate, and the mission of Operation Smile is to provide help and support to these children through providing 6,000 medical volunteers across 80 countries who are dedicated to help these children with facial conditions, most commonly cleft lip and cleft palate. More than 200,000 children are born with a cleft every year, and they are often unable to speak, eat, socialise or even smile. However, it can take as little as 45 minutes and cost just €180 or 182 francs for Operation Smile to provide a child with life-changing surgery. Now, in partnership with Operation Smile, EMEA Recruitment is raising valuable funds and aiming to create 100 new smiles to support the organisation to provide free surgeries for children and young adults all over the world. Please help us by donating through the link in the bio, or get in touch to see how your company can help get involved too. For the moment, I'll leave you to carry on listening to the rest of the podcast, but if there's anything I can do in terms of answering any questions or finding out how you can help and support EMEA Recruitment and Operation Smile, then please don't hesitate to reach out to us. Thank you once again, and enjoy the rest of the podcast.
No, really interesting. And I mean, obviously you mentioned within that answer about the changing shape of managers and leaders these days. I mean, it's a very different role to what it was a number of years ago. And you have thought leaders in this area that I know inspire you, people like Simon Sinek and Adriana Huffington as well, who obviously, they put a lot of ideas out there in terms of the why and the motivation and helping people to thrive, which is quite a different model to that of somebody like Jack Welch from the GE days a number of years ago. And you could see probably the days of if Jack Welch was trying to implement his ideas now, it'd be quite difficult to get a lot of these ideas pushed through the human resources team, but also it probably wouldn't be as effective as it was back then, because people have changed. The values and ethics of a company are now under the spotlight so much, and I guess because of all this, it does make finding great talents harder, because you mentioned yourself, it's a lot about the cultural fit, bringing people in with big ambitions, surrounding yourself with great talents. So I was just wondering, from your experience, if there's any advice you can give in terms of the most efficient and effective way to find quality people that fits with the environments and your values, really?
Yeah, that's again a super question, and I must say forces a lot of introspection. So firstly, to be honest with you, I don't think I have a standard rule or a mantra for hiring people, but I can reflect on the learnings of the past few years, especially in my role at Dole. But I think even if I looked at my previous role at Unilever, where I spent some lovely years, I think when you're looking to really build good teams, one of the first things that we really need to be clear is what's our strategy? And the way I think we've been approaching this even at Dole right now is firstly, let's write down our strategy for growth. And then strategy should determine the kind of structure, skills, and competencies that we need. And once that becomes very clear, because basically you're making choices, right? Strategy is all about choices. Once you're clear on the choices that you are making or have made, then you really start mapping out, look, what are the skills that we need? And that's an approach I've been following. We literally first start by looking at these are the skills we need, and this is the width and depth of competencies and experiences, which are the table stakes. And then we start defining, and we've done that. Let's also define what kind of attitude do we need? Do we really need to bring in individually driven talent who will make things happen? Or do we need to have people who will collaborate very well, work in pods and work in mission-based teams, who are grounded, but who are driven? And then the other thing I think, which is very important for us, has been the candidate or whoever we bring in should be passionate about what we stand for. That's why when I said earlier, the why, we are quite clear about why we as an organization exist. And once you are clear and you can communicate that very sharply to potential candidates in the outside world, I've generally seen that those who relate to and aspire to, or whom the purpose resonates with, automatically tend to get drifted your side, and they show a lot of interest and passion in being part of your team. The other thing we've also been doing a lot very proactively, both personally and as a company, is we look for talent that has vision that goes beyond this immediate job. In fact, it's one of my favorite questions that I always end up asking: where do you see yourself in the next 5 to 7 years? And it's been a learning for me that there are candidates who will articulate so clearly their self-vision of where they see themselves in the next 12 to 18 months and where they see themselves in 7 years. And they can literally, it's almost they visualized the steps to their own evolution, and they are literally showing you the picture of where they're going and how they're going. That makes a very big difference. So really that's kind of the approach. And if I relate it to recent hires, previous hires in my previous role, always start with having a very clear job description. Then you look for the skills. I typically look for people who are really got the width and depth of competencies, experiences, but then you get into the softer side, because that's what sustains candidates, and that's what allows them to build a career from themselves, and it allows organizations to really create the kind of teams that you want. And I've typically ended up getting a lot of people who are very driven, they're fire in the belly, but yet very grounded. They have a very authentic opinion of themselves. At the same time, there is no lack of vision of where they see themselves going and where they'd like to take the company. And then I think 9 out of 10 times, I would say the winning formula happens. And I've typically seen when the right combination happens, most of these conversations really don't go into compensation and money, because candidates who buy into the vision, and if you see the candidate fitting into what will make the right winning combination, I think then the magic happens. And I don't think organizations hold back in ensuring the best compensation for the best candidates. So that's really the approach I've personally taken, Paul, and it is something we are doing more and more even at Dole. We've managed to bring in some fantastic talent from some of the best FMCGs. And I can assure you it's not because we are paying 30% more, but it's because of a purpose and a vision that they have seen, they've aspired to. And it's because of the width and depth of skill that they are bringing that is making us a winning combination. And you can see the difference. great talent lands very well, starts making a difference very well, and they in turn then, especially at the leadership levels, they in turn start building really good teams. You can see the motivation, morale of the teams jumping up. You can actually see it exhibited in the performance levels improving, and then you start seeing some of the best ideas that are coming from the most junior team members, and that to me is a sign of somewhere down there we've stoked the fire. We've started the fire, and now it's catching on. People are passing the flame, and then you see it in the kind of creative ideas, creative executions that start coming visible to the organization.
Some really great insights there, and I think the fact that we spoke about it earlier in terms of the setup of the business and your role, what you look for in people, all of this, obviously it helps. It's a whole package to try and attract the best people. And as you say, if people buy into what the business is doing, the vision of the business, they share the passion and the values of the business, then most of the other things take care of themselves, because if you've got that a tick next to that box, then actually the rest of the immediate role and the career path will become clear over time. So I think it's some really great advice within that, and I guess given that we've spoken about the whys and motivations quite a lot so far, I thought it might be interesting just to ask you, why you decided to take the career path you did in the first place. Because obviously what we usually see from guests on the podcast is it's a bit of a chance meeting or a decision that's taken where there's quite a big risk attached to it, but it's a calculated risk that people make, So I thought, given that we're talking about whys and motivations, it might make sense to ask you that question, why you chose the path you did and what you've learned from it, really.
Yeah, so look, I've always worked in large organizations, and I've had the great opportunity, as you know, whether it was Coca-Cola or Unilever, to work across multiple geographies with some amazing teams. And I think I was actually having a great time working for Unilever, which in my experience has been one of the best organizations I've worked for. An organization that is just the right balance of skills and values and so human-centric. And I can say there was no reason to complain at Unilever during my 4.5 years based in the UK. I was also enjoying that role a lot because I was really driving capability. I was really enjoying what I was doing, building a team of almost 100 people across countries and teaching them the art of net revenue management. And, it's one thing to teach, but when you see the teams implement and they see how they succeed and they turn around the performance, that was the joy I was getting. And then it so happened, for some personal reasons, we were wondering whether we needed to stay on in the UK or we needed to come back to Asia. And just around the time, I was also very keen that while I had been teaching people and, let's say, in a capability role for 4 years, I was itching to go back to operations, because basically what I've always enjoyed is being in the thick of all the challenges. And, that's what gives me the mojo. So I was contemplating and I was evaluating whether within Unilever I could get a chance to move back into an operating role. And lo and behold, I was speaking to one of our ex-senior colleagues, and he had just joined as the president of Dole. One day he just said, by the way, could I share with you in confidence a new purpose that we are writing, just as a reflection? And he exposed me to the new purpose that was being put together. And I actually remember telling him that, wow, if that kind of purpose to make the world a more equitable place where everyone has a right to good nutrition, I said, if that's going to be the why that the organization exists, I'd be surprised that you wouldn't have candidates running to you. I mean, that's the kind of business you want to be. And don't forget, Dole is a 170-year-old company that decided to start all over again. And we always work like a startup. So he was sharing all this with me, and it was really motivating me. And then something led to the other, and he popped the question. He said, I heard you're leaving, or you're looking out, and would this excite you? And that's how I decided I'll just take a chance, and I'll come and, sell fruits and fruit-based products, and that's how I am here. And as you can see, the last 2 years, I'm close to 2 years now, Paul. It's been super exciting. We are really building something amazing. And the only thing is, I thought change will happen very swiftly. What I'm learning again is transformation doesn't happen as swiftly, especially in organizations that have lagged behind. So it just makes the pressure more intense, the need to move faster more intense. But I can just say there's never a dull moment.
No, it's really interesting a story, and I guess again, just thinking about how this links with the other things you've been talking about in the discussion as well. I mean, at the heart of all of this, a lot of this is down to relationships and talking and listening to people that you know. I mean, as you say, as you mentioned just there, the situation at Dole came around because of a friend or contact who was there, and the whole conversation started off the back of that relationship. But then you look at recruiting great people for the team. Again, it comes down to relationships and having the right connection there with people, and then even looking to what we were talking about earlier with the physical and mental well-being. You have to have good relationship with friends and family to allow you to have the structure to be able to fit these things into the day. So much of this comes down to personal relationship and networking, or and building that network as much as you can. And I guess where I'm going to with this is that obviously there's a big trend at the moment with the BI and data side of things coming into play. It's clearly something that is only going to get bigger in our lives, both at home and at work. And I just thought I'd ask you a question around that, because I suppose with the influx now of BI and data and the importance that companies and people put onto it, it's harder and harder now to have those kind of great relationships with people, because now people will reach to WhatsApp to send a message or email to send a message rather than give somebody a call. They'll analyze situations using data that people have filled in using tick boxes, rather than necessarily sitting down and actually talking to people and listening to them. So I just wondered, what your thoughts are on the whole BI and data side of things, and how you think it's going to impact businesses really in the future.
Yeah, look, firstly, I have to tell you, I'm a great fan of data and data science, especially the application of data science in decision making. Firstly, I have a lot of comfort with numbers, so I've always been a bit of a numbers and Excel kind of person. And usually you'll see most of the roles I've done are the roles that require you to be very good with your numbers or delve into numbers. But I think my eye-opening moments were when I went to this great company called Unilever, and you see the kind of data that the company has, whether it's consumer related, customer related, their own business related. And then what the company is proactively thinking ahead and doing to get data science up and running was an eye opener. And my role there in net revenue management was basically all about data science and analytics to really find opportunities to drive margin growth, top line growth. And those were the days where we were still doing a lot of Excel, and we hadn't yet gotten into AI, but there were a lot of tools coming our way. There was a lot of data coming our way, and we learned and we practiced with some very bright team members and colleagues of mine on how to integrate multiple sources of data to actually spit out some amazing insights, which led to some game-changing innovations or game-changing marketing activations. And I think between then and now, as we all know, that data-driven marketing became such a big science, right? And there's so much of talk about segmentation of audiences and really, as they say, hyper-segmenting your marketing programs. I had a close brush with a lot of this because we were using a lot of our data during the net revenue management days to actually do consumer segmentations based on data, understand their consumption patterns, their motivations, their occasions, and so on. And then using that data to actually come up with the recommendations for the brand team to come up with either brands or programs. And then when the teams actually developed the programs and you saw the results, so wow, that was so sharp. So hence my belief in data and why data is the fuel that's already is and going to get more and more intense in leading the world. Now in my current role, I come into an organization that is not as data rich, rather it's quite data poor. So we have been spending time in the last 2 years, and even before I joined, the teams are already collecting a lot of data. We've started a lot of, whether it's understanding consumer need states, motivations, whether it's mapping customer scan data, whether it's mapping sales, by pack, by SKU at different price points and so on. And now you have e-commerce, where e-commerce again comes with a lot of data if you can get access to it. So we've been on a journey of really setting up some platforms. We've partnered with some key suppliers who are now in our ecosystem, and we are using their AI-enabled tools and platforms to really start generating insights and using data and BI to really shape and guide how we go. So right now, if you ask us, how are we mapping out where we will play and how we will win in the next 5 years, it's becoming more and more data science-led. If you ask me, you're launching a new innovation, how do you even decide what size you should launch at and what should be the price of the next snack food? Well, guess what? We are now applying data. So it's not anecdotal. It's not seat of the pants. It's not just based on what we picked up during our market visit. So, and it's leading to some very effective decision making. The same applies to the way our supply chain organization is being run, the way our finance organization is being run. So I think it's a given. And the beauty of today versus yesterday, in the past, data collection was expensive. It was time consuming. There were a few vendors or partners that specialized. Today, with mobile telephony, with cloud, everything changed. We are working with partners who actually have panels of consumers that they've collected through the mobile phone. They can actually finish an exhaustive study in a country in 7 days, and 3 weeks later or 2 weeks later, they can give you the entire analysis, all the findings with the recommendations, and at a fraction of the cost that we were spending 6 years, 8 years ago. So I think the speed at which you get the data, the depth of the data that you can get is changing. And I mean, you would be surprised that now if you wanted to know how consumers consume your product, you not only can get them on a mobile phone, but you can get the consumers to take the picture of when they're consuming a certain product, when they're eating something. So, it can be you would think it's intrusive, but the panels are very okay about it. So you can actually see consumption in the moment, right? When they're actually consuming, where were they? What exactly were they drinking or eating? What portion were they eating or drinking? It suddenly gives you the kind of depth that we didn't have before. So for me, look, the passion for data exists. And I think any and every organization, regardless of whichever field we are in, data has to be the key foundation if we are not already there. And which also therefore means you need to bring in a lot of expertise, people who know how to deal with data. And that's where the whole space of data scientists in organizations. And then you need to start looking at AI tools. So if you don't understand AI, let's go and educate ourselves a bit on AI, because the world is already there. The future has already arrived. It's just unevenly distributed right now. So the earlier we pick that up and the earlier we make data something that we all live by, I think it's super critical. And at Dole, the leadership has already been there, way before I came. That's why there's a lot of focus on really making sure we're picking up all the key insights and we're bringing in all these vendors who can help us get the right data.
No, and again, it could just come back as well to it's a big learning curve for leaders and managers now in this changing world. I think you mentioned in your answer there how quickly the data can be available across a huge geographical area and in a very short space of time, something that we would have thought was impossible, 10 years ago. And so as leaders and managers, I guess you've got to now be a lot more focused on that and you have to react to these things a lot quicker. So there is more pressure to deliver faster because of it as well, I assume.
That's right.
So, I mean, obviously, we were talking a bit there about consumers and, understanding the habits and the way they look at products and services. And I know that obviously yourself and your colleagues in the business share a lot of information on the growth of healthy snacks and how it's having a huge transformational impact on our eating habits. So I thought it'd be good to to ask you what trends you're seeing in this area at the moment. If there's any insights you're prepared to give us in the podcast today.
Oh yeah, absolutely. This is another fascinating area, right? So first of all, I'm sure you're aware, the world over, there is what we call the snackification of meals as a trend that's becoming bigger and growing every day. I think with COVID, this has taken on even more momentum where people are eating more frequently, smaller portions, and it's almost becoming like snackification versus proper meals, right? So I bet you even in my house, I can see 4 of us, we barely now sit down and have a full breakfast, but we just have 3 different small snacks between morning and lunch. So that's, I think, an overall trend. But if you really dive into what's happening within snacking itself, there is a very, very strong move and evolution towards healthy snacking. And it's basically this healthy snacking, if you may, it's kind of aligning itself to 3 health trends that I'm aware of and that are really picking up. One is a move towards mindful indulgence. The second is what I call back to basics. And there's a third trend, which is functional fuel. So what I mean by that is mindful indulgence, which is the need for snacks to balance taste and nutritional content. You remember I said in the beginning that I'm becoming more mindful of what I eat. I actually relate to this insight because I see a lot of people who are right now becoming quite mindful, and they're really balancing the taste and the nutritional content. People are actually looking at labels of what they're eating and how much, vitamin, protein, and how much roughage and how much fiber it has. So we have a lot of research data that's also showing us mindful indulgence is a very growing and big trend. The other thing that's happening is, and by the way, there are, when we say mindful indulgence, there are snacks that have either been removing ingredients or are adding back natural ingredients, which is also what consumers are looking at. Then is what I call back to basics, which is really using natural, herbal, more and more natural and herbal ingredients that improve nutrition, or they add some kind of functional benefit to the snacks you eat. So which is why when you see a lot of energy bars or a lot of these snack bars, you'll see they're so based on nuts and fruits and non-sugar, or natural sugar. That's a reflection of back to basics. People are looking for stuff that is still more and more natural or more and more herbal, and it has functional benefits, right? The other one is what I call functional food, which is the growing importance of functional fuel. The growing importance of fortified snacks for all demographic groups. These are snack foods that are good for my gut. They are good for my blood. They are good for my bones. And these are snack foods that have a lot of fortification added back to them. And it doesn't just stop at vitamins or proteins, but you'll see these days, for example, a lot of snack foods that come with probiotics. So probiotic is now generally accepted is very important for gut health, right? So more and more foods have found a way to retain the taste, but also give probiotics, which clearly help the gut. And I think what is getting further fueled, as we are seeing, is there are a couple of other emerging trends that are making snacking, healthy snacking, more entrenched. And I suspect, or rather I believe, I would say, it's going to get very huge. People are moving more and more to fresh. So you want fresh ingredients used in the snacks you eat. You want your snack to be fresh and not 12 months old or 6 months old. You actually want your snack food to have very little of processed materials inside. You want everything to be fresh, which comes straight from the plant or wherever is the source. Then, of course, there is this no sugar, low sugar, right? So more and more snacks are moving away from low sugar to low sugar, no sugar. High proteins. This is becoming very important in our diet. We all need to ensure the right balance of proteins. Portion control. I mean, I don't know if you've seen that, but every and any snack, whether it's healthy or unhealthy, portion control has become a big thing. Therefore you have minis, you have light bites, whether it's things like chocolates, whether it's things like chips, or whether it's a lot of other stuff, you'll see smaller portions, this portion control. And I'm tying this to this snackification trend of meals, right? We're eating more often, but smaller quantities, therefore portion control. And the last, again, is this functional nutrition. I think I'm aware of a lot of food companies, snack companies, beverage companies that are actually moving towards functional nutrition. They are actually developing products which are natural. I mean, we are too. Natural products, they come from plant or fruit, and they clearly are a rich source of fiber or a rich source of some other ingredient that's good for your blood, good for your skin. We clearly see that already happening. There are a lot of pioneering organizations that have already put out some great innovations there. And which is why also this is a self-belief that healthy snacking is where the world is moving. And I can again relate it back, Paul, to the Gen Zs and the millennials. They are very conscious of what they eat, and they are now looking at labels. Our generation never bothered to look at what was on a label. If the taste was good, who cared how much sweet it had?
It's so true. I mean, everything you've said there, I can actually, personally relate to as well. I mean, I think it's and it does coincide with a lot of the things we've been talking about, because I mean, I think at the start of the conversation, we were talking a bit about the time you put aside for meditation. And I see that is something that has become more prevalent with a lot of people these days. And then it links into the mindful eating, because I think if you then take more time to think about what you're doing, you have a bit more space in your head to think about these things, and that links into, before picking up the Mars bar, you think twice and pick up a healthier option, and you find that it does correlate well. But also, as you mentioned, I think that there's a lot of technology now that's out there to help with this. I mean, it's linked to BI and data that we were talking about. I mean, there's a whole range of apps now you can use that scan the barcodes for you and will calculate your daily nutrition, and obviously so many fitness apps out there now that you can run your health and fitness around the benefits that BI and data and meditation and well-being can bring. So it all comes together well, which is obviously is great news for your business really as well, I guess.
No, absolutely it is, and it goes straight back to our purpose, and that's what we as an organization have been busy doing. We are cleaning up our products. We have a stated objective that by 2025 100% of our portfolio is going to be clean labels, so no added sugars, no processed stuff. And I'm sure we are one amongst many like-minded companies that are moving in that direction, because that's what our consumer needs, and that's what I think is the right thing to do.
No, and it's amazing, with some of these apps that are out there that just track the nutrition. I mean, it's sometimes a bit depressing in some ways. You when you start to put in a food that you've had for years, and you put that into your app, and then realize that's a third of your daily calories for the day, and you think, okay, this isn't going to happen anymore. So you need to try and find better alternatives, which you mentioned are coming onto the market a lot now. It's a lot easier to get these healthier alternatives to the regular snack you would have, and most importantly, the majority of them actually do taste nice as well. So you're not just eating it and thinking, okay, I'm just eating this because I'm hungry and I want to get some calories in, and I'm not enjoying the experience. At least now there's a lot of healthy alternatives that actually are nice to eat, so you don't know. I don't have that excuse not to go for the healthy option these days that I probably did in the past, I think.
Exactly. And I think what's happening, as you were saying, one is there is more information out there, and there are more tools out there that make us aware of what we eat. And I think the second thing is there is also the choice available now. So if you're aware of what's good or not so good, and you have the choice, I think that's what then starts tweaking the behavior in that direction. So I'm not surprised that I actually see, and we very often speak to consumers who are now having snacks, and they have a habit of having snacks, but it's, as you said, away from, let's say, a nice chocolate bar to having a bowl of fruit, where they think fresh fruit or even a fruit bowl like the one we have is healthy. I'm actually surprised to see people having sugar-free jellies as a snack, a cup of jelly, because it's fruit-based, it's non-sugar, and it satisfies my craving for a snack in between. And it's quite noticeable that how they will not talk about, I had a packet of potato chips, so the choice is there. The choice is there, and it always will be, right? As consumers and as corporates, the objective is to always provide choice. I think it's about what the consumer is choosing. That's noticeable. And that's the trends I was referring to. We're seeing that more and more. I call these the environmentally conscious consumers, and they are beginning to make very conscious choices. And I think that's a trend that's shaping how industry is going to evolve in this space.
No, it's very interesting to go through this. And I thought the last question I was going to ask you today, Aashim, it's a bit of an unusual one. I mean, as I mentioned at the start of the podcast, our podcast partner is Operation Smile. So it's a charity we work really closely with, and they help children who are born in developing countries with cleft palates and lip scenarios to help put a smile onto their faces. So I thought maybe a relevant question to ask you at the end of the podcast was, what can you guarantee is going to make you smile?
That's a good one to end this with. Look, what's going to make me really smile is if the world really turns back the clock on what's happening to the environment, and if we can turn back the clock on what's happening to people in poverty and malnutrition. And I'm saying this not just because I work for a company that's in the food space, but also as you become more aware of what's happening around you. And when you read that, I'm shocked that I can't remember the exact number, but something like 600 or 800 million children go to bed every night without a meal. I mean, how can that be? I mean, we're talking about landing on Mars, and we're talking about space tourism. And if you have X 100 million children who don't have a meal to eat before they go to bed, then clearly as a society, we are not progressing, in my view. So what would really give me happiness is if that number could be halved or even completely obliterated. And if I could have a very, very, very small part to play in that, I think I'll really feel happy. I think it'll give me the happiness, which is not physical, but it's something which is deep inside. And that's my big why of what makes me get up, go to work, and do the things that I do every day.
Oh, I can't think of a better way to conclude the podcast, Aashim, on your why statement at the end. And I think it's been great to speak to you today. I mean, it's really interesting to hear about your career, the situation at Dole, the things that really have inspired you and you've learned over the years. So I know the network will also take a hell of a lot of interesting thoughts and comments from this podcast as well. So just with that in mind, I mean, if any of the network wants to reach out to you, what's the best way they can connect with you?
Yeah, first of all, let me thank you, Paul. Thank you very much for this conversation. And I always learn a lot when I get questions like this. It also makes me introspect and rethink and think smarter on my feet. And I also feel very humbled to be given this opportunity to speak to you. I'm available on LinkedIn. It's the best platform for anyone to reach me, and if I can be of any help, any support, any assistance to the network. LinkedIn is the best place, and I'm very active on LinkedIn. I check it every day. It's got my contact details there as well. So I would say that's the best place to reach out, Paul. And thank you again for this great opportunity to speak to you today.
No, it's been a pleasure. So thank you very much for spending the time with us. And what we'll do when we promote the podcast, we'll make sure we add your LinkedIn connection on the promotional text as part of the podcast as well. So then it's easier for people to connect with you and make the introduction. So huge thanks again, Aashim. Wish you all the best for the coming weeks. And good luck with the continued healthy eating and the jogs and the success in the role, really.
Thank you so much, Paul. Really appreciate
it. Speak to you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to today's podcast episode. If you'd like to reach out to Paul or myself, please feel free to send a connection through on LinkedIn. And if you'd like to listen to previous episodes of the podcast, you can find them all at our website, www.emearecruitment.eu.